Thank you to our last panel of women. We enjoyed your discussion. Yes, let's give them a round of applause. Yes, slight. The title of today's panel, thank you everyone, thank you. The title of today's panel is Today's Young Professionals, Tomorrow's Leaders, Steps to the Executive Office and Beyond. And I would just, again, like to thank all of our panelists for being here, including our previous panel. We know that you've been receiving a lot of information throughout this convention, and I am encouraging all of you to not only come yourselves tomorrow, but to encourage others to come to our Measuring the Movement Leadership Forum, where we really lay out all of the things that we've learned throughout this entire convention and come up with an action plan for the next 12 months. It's taking place tomorrow, Saturday, April 14th at Howard University in Crampton Auditorium, and it begins at 11 a.m. We'll also have a special segment called, it's called How to Gain From Our Pain, Turning Our Situations into a Movement, and it's featuring Sabrina Fulton, the mother of Trayvon Martin, Kadidou Diallo, the mother of Amadou Diallo, and Nicole Bell, Sean Bell's widow. So that will be another great session for you, and I hope that you join us. So at this time, I'm going to introduce our panelists, and then we'll let them give you a little bit of an introduction for themselves. First, to my right, your left, we have Brian Benjamin, who is the founder of Young Professionals United for Change. And Brian, if you could just raise your hand so people know who you are. Seated next to him, we have Ms. Jennifer Williams, who is the founder of Lucid Cosmetics, owner of Flirty Girl Fitness, and she's also a reality personality on VH1's Basketball Wives. Give her a hand. To my left, we have Mr. Amos Wimbush. He is the founder and chief executive officer of CyberSyncs. And next to him is Monisha Kapila. She is the founder and executive director of ProInspire. We have one other panelist who should be joining us shortly. His name is Philo Reynolds, and he is the Director of Business Development for Research and Associates. So we're going to start, yes, we'll give him an applause in his absence. We're going to start with, kind of where people are today, and actually we're going to go through, and if each of you could just give a little bit of background about where you are. I introduced you with your title, but tell us a little bit more about yourself, and we'll start over here with Jennifer. Well, they say ladies first, so if one of the gentlemen wants to go. You're just going to tell people a little bit about your businesses and how you got to be a leader.
Okay. Well, my name is Jennifer Williams, and I guess I'll start with my most recent baby, which is Lucid Cosmetics. And it's basically a lip gloss company that I just launched, I would say, probably about a year ago. And I always kind of wanted to do a product for myself, but I wasn't quite sure. So I always wear lip gloss, and I have about 5 in my bag. So I decided, why not do something that's close to my heart? And just being on TV and a reality show, I just thought it was a great platform to show young people that even though I was going through something personal in my life, which was a divorce, that life goes on and you can still make the most of it. And for me, it was a great distraction to throw myself into business and do something for myself and not for my ex for a change. So it's been good. It's definitely been some challenges, and it was a business that I didn't know anything about, but like anything, you learn as you go along. So it's been challenging, but it's been very rewarding. I think because it is 100% my business, I'm not doing a licensing deal, I'm not a spokesperson. So I'm actually really proud, and it's like my little baby, so I'm watching it grow. I also have Flirty Girl Fitness, which I'm a principal owner in, and it's a women's fitness studio. We have 2 locations in Chicago and Toronto. I'm not quite as involved with the everyday, but I do make a lot of decisions. We have a lot of meetings. So, I mean, for me, I'm definitely into fitness, so it's something that I'm proud of. Women love to come there and have a good time, and I think it builds their self-esteem. So it's definitely something that I love to call my own. And I also have a nonprofit foundation called Project Save the World. And for me, it was just, I felt like, I was extremely blessed, and I felt like it was very important to give back to my community. So I couldn't think of one particular cause that I wanted to support. It's actually myself, another MBA wife, and another friend of mine. And so we decided to call it Project Save the World, and just basically, whatever's in our hearts. 1 month it may be breast cancer, it may be childhood obesity, but I think there's so many issues that need our time, effort, and money. It's hard to really pinpoint one particular thing. So that's basically my businesses and my career at the moment.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'll just move down the line. So go ahead.
Yeah, Brian Benjamin. I actually grew up in New York City, Brooklyn, Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan. I was born in Harlem.
You trying to claim the Bronx now?
I didn't mean to. I was just in the Bronx. That was an accident. My mother's from Guyana. My father's from the U.S. and my stepfather's Jamaican. So I kind of grew up in a Caribbean household. And I've always been interested in politics. My mother worked for a local labor union, and so I went to conventions. I remember in '84 watching Jesse Jackson. Wow, people in '88, and I didn't know why people were crying, but now I know why they were crying at the time. And I'm always interested in politics, and so as I went to school, that was an important interest of mine. And I went to Brown for undergrad, and when I was at school, I recognized, I like politics, but I didn't want to be broke. And I felt like, a number of political people who I was seeing as I was getting older, they were getting caught up in things because they were taking money under the table, all these things. And so for me, I said I wanted to figure out a way to not do that. So I started getting interested in business. So I went to business school. I went to Harvard Business School, and I spent a lot of my time after that trying to merge the two, trying to do businesses that were politically oriented. So that's what led me to where I am now. Presently, I'm a partner in a affordable housing development firm. So we build affordable housing in New York and New Jersey. I'm also, I started a young professional group called Young Professionals United for Change, and that all started during the Obama campaign. One of the things I noticed, a lot of my friends were so excited about Obama who hated politics. And so I said, wow, this is pretty special. So I thought it was a great time to sort of get people, young black professionals, civically engaged. And so we created this group, fundraising for the president, and we got very involved. And afterwards, similar to what Jen's doing, when Haiti happened, we had a huge fundraiser for that. Just most recently, this is tied to my activities with National Action Network, when Ramarley Graham, the tragedy in the Bronx, tragedy in the Bronx, we helped raise money for the funeral, and just those kinds of things. We try to do civic things to get young professionals more engaged in the community, mentoring kids and the like. And so that's kind of where I am presently.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll turn it over to this side. I do want to, at this time, formally, while he's here, mention Fela Reynolds. You all gave him a nice round of applause when he wasn't here, but we can give him another round of applause while he is here. And so we'll go to Amos, and then we'll make our way down the line.
I don't know if you guys can see me okay. My name is Amos Winbush III. I am the founder and CEO of a technology firm called CyberSyncs. I launched the firm in 2008. And what we do is we develop synchronization software for electronic devices and car computer systems and medical devices as well. When I launched this company, I had no background in technology whatsoever. I was a music guy. My father was a musician, my cousin's a musician, and that's kind of what I thought my life was going to be like. Until one day my mobile phone crashed and there was no solution to synchronize content wirelessly. So I developed a software that synchronizes content wirelessly across mobile platforms and across cellular networks. So if you are currently with AT&T and you leave to go to Verizon, my software is the software that can only allow your content to go between those networks. We launched our business in 2008, and quickly in 2009 we raised roughly $1.2 million and started to expand our product offerings to now where we are with launching to about 52 million people across Africa with the number 3 telco in the world, Bharti Airtel, to currently negotiating with the number 1 telco in the world, China Mobile, to cover about 621 million people across Asia. We're really focused on a lot of inner city and rural technology initiatives. So anything that has to do with science, technology, engineering, and math, I'm a champion for. I am really close with Scott and Steve Case from Startup America, who works with the Obama administration, their initiative to bring startups around this country. I go out and I talk to individuals because there is a lack of minority representation in the tech world. I also just recently raised probably the largest funding round of any minority tech firm, roughly $200 million and a valuation of $1.5 billion for my company. And I didn't say that to get applause. I said it to, but thank you. I said it to make sure that individuals out there listening understand that you don't have to have a degree within technology, but you do have to have a solution that is a utility and that people can use all around the world. So with that being said, I wanted to focus on giving back to the community. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, so I understand what struggle is and still do to this day. Even though they change. I started a program called PEG, P-E-G, Promote, Educate, and Give Back. It really focuses on putting resources into the hands of little boys and girls around this country from the age of 11 all the way up to the age of 17, so that when they're going to college, they understand that technology is a career for them and can be a really great career path, and they're not stuck with the sticker shock of going into college and not understanding anything about what they're wanting to do with their lives. So that's my story.
Good afternoon. My name is Monisha Kapila, and I'm the founder and CEO of ProInspire. ProInspire is a nonprofit which is developing the next generation of nonprofit leaders. We're really focused on social impact, and we believe that the nonprofit sector needs to invest in growing and developing leaders just as much as business and government do. My background, I actually started in the business world and always knew I wanted to work in the nonprofit sector and found it was fairly challenging to make a transition. And so once I was finally able to, I realized that nonprofits were looking for people with different skill sets. So ProInspire's flagship program is actually to recruit business people who want to move into the nonprofit sector. We recruit people coming out of finance and consulting, marketing, operations, and they really want to have a career where they can have a more meaningful impact. So we partner with organizations that are doing community development and education, youth development, international work, and we place the fellows in those organizations. We also do training and leadership development because we know that you don't just sort of show up for work and then grow into these leadership roles. You really do need support systems, and the nonprofit sector isn't always the best at providing that. So I'm really excited to talk to people who are trying to figure out how to navigate their own career paths and even thinking about moving from one place to another and knowing that it's okay. I've moved from business to nonprofit to business to starting something, and it's been okay. So thank you.
Yes, my name is Fayetteville Reynolds. Currently I'm research associates as Director of Business Development. We are a strategic planning and development company. We work in legislative policy. Before I was there, I worked with the Hip Hop Caucus as their Director of Development. I came up here from Atlanta, Georgia in 2006 to work with the Hip Hop Caucus. We had a few successful campaigns, worked with the National Action Network. We started out actually with Vote or Die back in 2004 with Diddy. And from there, we navigated the political climate to Obama in 2008, of course. We had a successful campaign called Respect My Vote, working with T.I., who at the time, of course, was going through his own legal troubles. But unbeknownst to him, he could still vote. So while he was going through all his trials and tribulations, he was able to still go through and punch the ballot for his candidate of choice. After that, we did a couple other campaigns focusing mainly on green energy. Because that is an area that we, as an urban community, are definitely behind on right now. Just got back from South Africa for the UN Climate Control Conference in Durban, South Africa, which was an excellent experience. Gained a lot of knowledge and shared a lot of good experiences with people around the world. and see that the challenges that we face here regarding green energy are going on throughout the world. In fact, unfortunately, in the United States, we are the biggest polluter. So people look at us differently. We go to these conferences because they look at us as the cause of a lot of the problems they're facing. So now the thing is we have to find solutions. And that's what it's all about. That's what we're here to do actually, is to listen, learn, and hopefully come up with some solutions to the problems that plague us right now.
So one of the things that I noticed when a few of you were talking about how you ended up being a leader, a business leader, was that it sounded like it was almost unplanned. So thinking back 10 years ago, did you see yourself where you are today? And if so, and even if not, in what ways do you think you planned for your own success? And I'll let that be an open question for whoever wants to answer it. And if no one answers it, I'll pick somebody. Okay.
10 years ago, did I see myself where I am now? No. Reason being is 10 years ago I was 18 and was really focused on girls. And not so much anything else. Girls and music, actually. So I think what allowed me to get to the place where I am now is the understanding that whatever I do is larger than me, and that I represent a lot of individuals who struggled in my family, so that I didn't have to struggle. So I had a sense of responsibility and not a sense of entitlement from a very young age, which allowed me to really kind of figure out what I wanted in life. So I moved to New York City at the age of 18, and it terrified my mom. She cried every night. I just learned this a couple months ago, actually. But I knew that I couldn't stay within their wings and fly and become the person that I was really meant to be. So that year taught me a lot. You know, eating pizza that I would buy three pieces for $5. I would eat the pizza one day and the crust the next day in order to be full. So I remember going to sleep at night and eating crackers and drinking water in order to feel full in my stomach so that I wouldn't get hungry. I would never tell my mom that because it was my decision. So at a very young age, I was able to decide that my decisions are my responsibility. So that's kind of what prepared me for here.
Okay. Very good. Anyone else?
Listening to Amos earlier actually struck with my brain. A couple of weeks ago, I sit on the President Obama's National Finance Committee, and to sit on this committee, you have to commit to raising $350,000 or more for the cycle. And one of the things I found when we had the meeting in Charlotte was that when I walked into the room, I was one of 5 black people in the room, and I was one of them probably on the 50 that I could just see. And when you asked the question, it ties to his point, I never thought I'd be in that room, but at the same time, 10 years before that, I never thought I'd be at Brown University. And so I think the way I look at it is I've always tried to push the envelope and follow my heart, my passion, and make decisions that I like at the time. When I decided to commit to raising money for the president, it was easy for me because it was this president. If it was a separate president, I wouldn't want to make that commitment. And so I think for me, I don't really kind of plan where I see myself. I just sort of throw my all into whatever I'm doing at the moment and let that sort of take me to wherever it's taking me.
That's an interesting point and something that I often think about myself. Never planned. I'm not a big planner. I'm kind of someone that I go where God and the universe kind of take me. But there's always challenges and obstacles along the way. So in your path to where you are today, what are some challenges and maybe some of the bigger challenges and obstacles that you faced but yet overcome? If you could speak a little bit to those and even how you overcame them. And that's, again, to anyone.
So I think many of the people on the panel are entrepreneurs, and that's a hugely challenging path to undertake because you really don't have any idea of what you're getting into. The resources are constrained, and you may be at times kind of living with different cycles of income. So from that perspective, I think you definitely have to be very thoughtful, or it's helpful to be thoughtful before you go down that path. But I would say my approach has always been to learn as much as I can wherever I am. So whenever I take on something, to take it on with this pure appetite of excitement and eagerness to learn, and also to just want to be like a rock star wherever I am. So whatever job it is, no matter whether it's a really boring job or it's the most exciting job, just show up every day to be like the person on the team that they can't do without. And I think that has really helped me overcome a lot of obstacles.
Do you think that that's something that you can teach, or do you think that that is something that people are born with? Because there are a lot of times, you know, especially when I was a little bit younger, maybe in my 20s, people would say, oh, you know, I'm just here to get a paycheck. I'm just, you know, I don't really love my job, and they wouldn't go that extra mile. And that's actually a philosophy that I subscribe to myself, that wherever I go, I want to make sure that I leave that organization with something. I didn't just come and collect a paycheck and take money, but that I left them with something that they can use for years to come. So do you think that that is a leadership skill that can be developed, or is that something that you're either born with and you have, or you don't have it?
I think it can definitely be developed, and part of it is believing that there are opportunities out there. So if you know that by showing up every day and doing a really awesome job, and even though the work may be boring, but it could lead to something else. So you have to believe in that, and also have the confidence that you can, you know, be a very valuable person by showing up with 110%.
Absolutely.
Is it possible to add to that?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
I honestly think that it can be both, but more so it's a personality. It's a personality trait that you are literally born with. If I don't like something, and this is not to, you know, slap that, you know, what you said down, but if I don't like something, then I'm just not going to put my all into it. I think it has to be, from my experience, it has to come from some small place internally that says, what's my true intent at this particular juncture? If I am at Burger King, what's my true intent? Am I working here to pay for school so I can go out and get a better job when I graduate? But it all really rests on intent.
That's true. So to speak to that, and maybe I'll turn it to Fela if you want to answer, or if not, if anyone else wants to answer as well. You know, when I was growing up, my dad used to say to me, you can be anything you want to be. Just, you know, follow your heart. Do what you love to do. Do the thing that you would do for free, and make that your job. Because if you do that, you'll be the best at it. You'll really follow it and pursue it with passion. How do we, you know, get young people to find and follow their passion?
Right now, I do work with the DC Urban League Young Professionals. Anyone that is in the DC area, we are a group of young professionals between the ages of 21 and 40 that are very actively involved in improving the lives of those in our community. Specifically, every Wednesday we're at Woodrow Wilson High School in DC, and that's a challenge that we struggle with on a weekly basis, is trying to find ways to motivate young people. At what age can you catch these people and get them properly motivated? My finding has been that it is easier to work with young people in the 6th to 8th grade level. During that age, in that age group, they are more likely to accept what you say as the truth, believe you, and act on it. They are like sponges at that age. When you catch them in high school, not saying that you cannot change or they won't change or they're already set in their ways, that is not the case either. But it's a lot more difficult to reach them and to propel them to greatness and success, which of course is the goal that we're talking about here. Getting them to think as leaders, getting them to accept or find their passion is difficult, but you have to talk to them, you have to engage them. And by doing those things, you can find ways in which you can help them to the level at which they want to succeed. I believe that we all can do that. We all can go into our communities and help the kids, and I would also challenge all of us to please do that. I heard the forum before us speaking and about mentorship, and I would urge anyone who's not involved in a mentoring level to please get involved, because there are plenty of kids out there who definitely need that assistance and that extra push.
Definitely, and I think, oh sure, go right ahead.
I'm a strong believer in your foundation is everything, and I really think that it starts in a home. I know some of us come from broken homes. But I really believe that it really starts in the home, and I think that parents have to talk to their kids. And my motto is like, you can't knock it until you try it. So, I mean, this is kind of, it doesn't relate to everything, but you know, you have to try things to know if you're gonna like it or not. So I really strongly believe that it really does start in the home. I know for me, my parents they just instilled in me like, okay, there was no question about whether you were gonna go to college or not. It was just something that you had to do it. So I know when it's time for me to make like some big decisions, or there's something very stressful going on in my life, I always hear my mom's voice in my head, or I think about something like, will my dad do this? So for me, I really think that the parents and the foundation is very key.
That's true, because as I mentioned that, you know, that was my father in my ear telling me that. So I definitely agree. And I also think, like you said, trying things to see if you like, yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, sure. One of the things, because I think I was made earlier that we're all entrepreneurs. I actually was an investment banker years ago when it wasn't such a dirty word. When I was actually something that people said, oh, that's good that you're doing that. And at that time, and I remember what happened to Jen's point, I hated it. I hated the structure. I hated the people I was working with. I was like, this sucks so bad. And I actually bumped into a passion for doing things entrepreneurial on the ground. That was the one thing I struck. The second thing I struck, and I don't want to go into too much details about it, was I wanted to do stuff for the Black community. And so I wanted to focus on building businesses, doing things that build wealth in our community, because I just felt like in that environment that I was killing myself for someone else's agenda. And I was like, okay, if I'm gonna kill myself, it's gonna be for my agenda or an agenda very close to mine. And so that has become a very important part of my sort of life being, but it was all because I made a quote unquote bad decision, which really was a good decision, to take a job as an investment banker.
Well, it's all about, again, you never know where you're going to end up. You just have to follow the path, and it'll all make sense at some point. You did mention that I think everyone on this panel has talked about starting their own venture. And so how do people get into entrepreneurial ventures, or how do young professionals who want to pursue that as an avenue, how do they find and go about setting that up? Because I met Amos actually virtually when I worked at another organization in New York. We helped entrepreneurs. And sometimes we would meet entrepreneurs at that organization, and they would say, well, this is not really my passion, I'm just doing this to make money. And so going back, tying kind of both of those things together, how do you think we can get more young professionals to pursue entrepreneurial ventures, if at all?
I'll start. That was from me on that. The first thing is that our crowd is too bling bling, too big time. Right? So one of the problems is that in order to be an entrepreneur, you have to be prepared to give up some of the lifestyle issues. And so the first thing we have to do is deal with mindset issues. That is just very difficult. I'm not sure, I don't know if it's the panel for that, but that's the first thing you got to do. The second thing, which is probably one of the first things, but for us, that's such a big issue, is you have to have something that you care about. Like, to Amos's point, like, oh crap, you dropped this phone, and you're like, wait, I want to fix this, because you cared about fixing it for yourself, and then you end up fixing it for everybody else. If you look at how Facebook was started, how many companies were started, it was based on something personal that people were really motivated by, and then they started to find a solution, and then they went from there. So I think, but for us, I'm telling you right now, because I do this all the time, oh, Brian, you love Morgan Stanley. First people thought I was crazy. Then they were like, oh, you left, and now you're doing this, and you're great, you got this business. I was like, yeah, but don't leave out the middle part between leaving Morgan Stanley and that year or two where I was kind of, my heart wasn't so high.
Where people were like, what is this dude doing?
What are you doing?
Right.
So I think we have to, as a community, come to grips with not being so materially obsessed and so judgmental. Your peers, my family, people are like, what are you doing? You went to Harvard and you're going to do what? This is crazy. You never get a job again. And these are people who you want to support you when you're trying to become an entrepreneur. You need people to give you investments, not talking about how you're crazy. So I think that those two issues are important.
Did you want to add to that?
Sure. I think we have to really get rid of just the piggyback and just get rid of being comfortable. You know, we like to be comfortable. And, you know, you really find yourself when you're in discomfort. It teaches you who you are and what you're made of. I'll never forget, I started CyberSyncs in 2008, and I went to my wife and I said, hey babe, I'm gonna invest $60,000, everything that we had in our savings. We were married 1 year, we were newlyweds. And she immediately said, okay, I believe in you. But throughout that entire year, she said, okay, I believe in you, which is her exact words. But throughout that year, that one sentence that she said, we went through so much where we would eat ramen noodles and spaghetti with wieners chopped into it like every other day. That was our meal. And I remember having 4 pair of shoes and every last pair had holes in them. And one day it started to rain and I had to get a plastic bag and put over my shoes and walk down the streets of Manhattan. That's the craziest thing that anybody could ever do. But I was okay with being uncomfortable at the time. You know, I think I wasn't wrapped up in, you know, okay, I don't make any money. The first year I launched the company, I made no money. You have to be able to be super poor and okay with that because you're working for something that is much larger than you at that particular moment. And then the second or the third thing is you really have to think about everything that you come in contact with in your everyday life. What is it that I've come in contact with that I could change to make better? That's the number one thing when you look about entrepreneurship and you think about entrepreneurship. It's not reinventing the wheel, it's making the wheel better. It's making the wheel roll seamlessly and smoothly. And if you can think about that and build a really great business structure around it and make money while you're sleeping at some point, then you'll be good. And not really worry about wealth or being rich, because being rich is, you know, a couple $1,000. But really worry about generating generational wealth, and it has nothing to do with money, but it has everything to do with the structure that you surround yourself with, the people that you surround yourself with. You know, people like to collect art when you get to a certain stature. I like to collect people. So in my journey of collecting and building relationships, I've been introduced to a lot of really great people that at age 23, 24, when I launched CyberSyncs, I never thought that I would have that ability to do. So, yeah.
One thing to add, unfortunately in our communities, we do not focus on entrepreneurship. And we have to ask the reason why. We're taught to go to school, get a good job, and after you get that job, then there's going to be a job waiting for you. Or go get another degree, and then there's going to be a job waiting for you. Then we get these jobs, and we get caught in what we always call the rat race. And people aren't happy. They want to move. They want to try something new. Challenges that face people. I'm 32 years old, and I've heard people tell people my age that want to try something new. You're stupid. You can't do it. You have to forget the fear. That's the first step. You have to forget the fear. Because of course you're going to be afraid. Of course there's going to be troubles. Of course there are going to be times you have to eat ramen noodles with SpaghettiOs, with hot dogs in them. But you can't be afraid of the struggle. A lot of times we focus on the end result. But the steps that it takes to get there, you have to look at those things. No matter who it is, in entrepreneurship, in athletics, in entertainment, you have to look at the struggle of the person and understand that there are steps that they took to get there. And they have to forget that fear. Also, once again, in our communities, we do not focus on entrepreneurship. Like I said, back in the day, the story that I was always told by my mom was the story of Benjamin, let me get this right, Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. Booker T. Washington, of course, focused on entrepreneurship, focused on blue-collar careers, focused on black people needing to put their focus into building themselves up, not necessarily trying to fit into someone else's world. And that was what W.E.B. Du Bois wanted us to do. He wanted us to go to school, get these degrees, and conform to whatever society that we were trying to reach and trying to become a part of. Unfortunately, I think that we as a people have gone the way of W.E.B. Du Bois. That's not a bad thing, because there are plenty of people who have achieved success through that way, through going to school, going to college. But we can't forget that Booker T. Washington had an excellent idea, and you can see actually what other communities have done, specifically the Hispanic community. You can see they took a lot of those ideas from working in blue-collar careers, focusing on entrepreneurship. And we should also look at what they've done and try to emulate some of those things, to try to look at entrepreneurship. Last thing I'll say is there's a rapper out now called 2 Chainz. 2 Chainz in one of his songs talk about when I went to school, money was a subject. Money actually should be a subject for us in our schools, and that's a problem that it is not. Because in our public schools, they don't get into entrepreneurship. I remember there was the only thing that talked about entrepreneurship when I was in school was FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America. That was it. There was nothing else that focused on entrepreneurship. However, if you go to the private schools, if you go to a lot of the well-to-do schools, they do focus on entrepreneurship. They have those classes. They expose them to the economic realities of this world. We need to do the same for our communities.
Monisha, I just quickly want to ask you, because I know that you are an entrepreneur, but you started a nonprofit organization, and there are a lot of people out here who, I get the question all the time, I want to start my own nonprofit. So if you could talk a little bit to the challenges and even, the benefits of starting your own nonprofit organization.
Sure, I think that starting a nonprofit is definitely not an easy process. First of all, you have to even just go through the licensing through the government to register as a 501c3, and there's a lot of bureaucracy around that. But the benefit of having a nonprofit is it's an organization that's really owned by the community. Every nonprofit has to have a board of directors that represent the interests of the community. And so I think if the thing that you're passionate about starting is something where the ultimate kind of driver is going to be focused on the community, then a nonprofit could be the right thing to start. There's also a lot of new social enterprises, which are for-profits that have social impact, and so there's a ton of options now, I think, for people passionate about that. I think the biggest challenges with the nonprofit is really the funding structure. So who is going to pay for the work that you're doing? And with nonprofits, oftentimes you're providing a really valuable service, but the people who receive the service aren't necessarily the ones who can pay for it. So for example, a program in schools, which is really valuable, the students or the students' parents can't necessarily pay for that, so who's going to pay for it? So that's probably the most important thing to think about when you're starting a nonprofit. Everyone's really passionate about the idea, passionate about a program or a community they want to impact, but think about who's going to pay for this, and if there really isn't anyone to pay for it, can it be run by volunteers? And then maybe it's better off being a church project or something versus going through the efforts of starting it as a nonprofit.
I want to shift just a little bit, and something that everyone has somewhat talked about, and Amos, you really made me think of it, the fact that your wife really supported you. And I really want to talk about having that work-life balance. Making sure that you can have your family and still do all of the things that you want to do in your career. How do each of you kind of maintain that work-life balance, whether it be your personal relationship with relationships with friends and family, or whether it be, just your community work, because I know everyone up here has referenced that they do something, some sort of foundation or some sort of community work. How do you balance all of those things? I'll start. I thought Jennifer. I'll let her go first. I was going to try.
Well, I have insomnia, so I don't sleep. But you know what? I think it's just time management. That was something that I learned a very long time ago, just to use my time wisely. I think it's definitely very important to give back. Like I said earlier, I feel like because I'm so blessed, I just feel like it's something that I need to do. But for me, it's I feel like I work really hard, I wear a bunch of different hats, and yeah, I like to go out and have a good time with my friends. I just feel like for me, sometimes I need that to release and be able to get through to the next day. And sometimes it's hard because with what I do, sometimes there's no such things as holidays. I may have to film, or I may have a commitment where I have to host a party or something. So, I think I've kind of gotten used to not having the holidays with my families at times, but I try and make it up in other ways. I know that, family is very important, but again, I think it's just time management for me. That's basically, and I don't sleep.
Well, I like to sleep, so that won't work for me. But time management is a good skill to have. Brian?
I think one of the things is to be conscious of the situation. One of the things that I was thinking about a couple weeks ago was that when I went to college, before going to college, everything was about my family. Then I went to college and everything became about my friends. I mean, my family to some degree. And so what I recognized was that after college, then I worked after college, then I went to business school, and most of my time was very work or school, and friends. And so I think I just became more conscious about the fact that, you know what, I do have little cousins who I don't know and need to spend more time with. And I do have family members who I could be as involved in as I am involved in helping Obama or young kids who I don't even know. And so I was like, wait a minute, I spend more time with kids I don't know than with some family members who look up to me and don't really know me. So that is something I've been grappling with. And the second thing is, on the personal side, I've also found out that I'm much more productive when I have a stable relationship with a woman than when I don't. And it's just the nature of the situation. You're out, you're going out, you're this and you're that. And I just really feel like, at least for me, I'm 35, so now things are starting to move. And my family is pressing. And so, but I'm more important.
So you're talking more from a pressure standpoint right now.
But even leave out the pressure part. I just feel like I'm just personally happier and better when my life is more stable, and that usually involves family, and it involves a woman who I am seriously dating. So anyway.
And I know the two of you are married, and you have a baby. So as a mom, I don't know if you want to speak to that, being a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur, and doing all of these other things that I know that you're involved in. How do you manage it all?
So I think the one thing I'll say is that there's no right answer, and I have not figured it out at all, and I hope someone else can come to me afterwards and tell me how to do it. I have a second child on the way, and I think it's crazy that we're trying to do all this at one time. So thank you. But I think some of the things that I have learned to accept are, one, I'm not going to get everything done. So a lot of times the house is a mess or things like that, and it's okay. And two, to really set boundaries. So I try to kind of finish my work by 5:30 so I can spend the evening with my son and then come back to work at the end of the evening when he goes to bed. So trying to be really strict about, okay, that means I have to, even if I'm in the middle of something, I have to stop it and go home at 5:30. And I think the third thing is I've given up a lot of other things. I hardly watch TV. I am not involved with a lot of community activities anymore. I used to serve on nonprofit boards. I was involved with the Obama campaign before. And so I think the challenge is when you are managing so many things, some things probably does have to drop and